Hey, Boldies, Steve Schlueter with some listing presentation tips. I know you've been practicing this, and I want to just go through and model some of the conversations for you, just maybe the dialogue. And let's set a stage where I've got somebody moving to Atlanta. I talked to Mr. Smith on the phone to set the appointment, and they want to be there during kind of Christmas break is kind of the timeline. So we're kind of 90 days out, roughly. And let's start. I've toured the home. We had the pre-qualification, pre-list conversation prior to the appointment. And I come in and I'm going to start with the promise. And I go, well, Mr. Smith, thank you for having me here today. And by the way, I want you to know that I know that there are thousands of agents out here, and I don't take lightly the fact that you've given me the opportunity to come visit with you today regarding the sale of your home and helping get your family moved to Atlanta. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity to be here with you tonight. And I'd like to start off with telling you a little bit about our promise that I operate my business by. Would that be okay? And they go, well, sure. And I said, well, here's what the promise is. The promise is the promise to give you an absolutely extraordinary, unbelievable real estate experience, one that exceeds your expectations. And one of the things I would have a question for you guys is, what might be a couple of important things to you that we make sure we deliver so that you have that unbelievable experience? What are some things that might be very vital to you? And let's say they say, well, our last agent, when we moved here from Nashville, just didn't communicate very well. We always had to chase the agent down. Got it. I understand. It's, that's unfortunately a challenge in our industry. And, typically here's what we do between myself or my assistant, Susan. We communicate with all of our sellers every Monday and Tuesday. I'm sorry, every Friday and Tuesday. And we're happy to do whatever is required of you to make sure that you have a great experience. With us communicating with you on Fridays and Tuesdays with a phone call, would that be adequate communication for you guys? And of course, we're always available anytime to take your call. And they go, well, that beats once a month when we had to chase our agent down, 10 years ago. Understood. So, well, it'll be my goal then to deliver that experience and so much more that you have a really great, unbelievable real estate experience. And when we deliver the promise of the great experience, there's two things we ask from our clients. And can I go over those two things right now? Would that be okay? And they go, sure. Well, the first thing is we ask that you provide us feedback. We don't know how we're doing unless we get your feedback. And we ask for that feedback in the form of online reviews. As you see, the best compliment we can get for a job well done is a 5-star review, and we desire your feedback. Excuse me if I pause a few times, guys. I'm fighting a cough. And then so nothing would be greater compliment than your 5-star review. And we ask for that, of course, that feedback. And so when we deliver on the promise, would it be okay for you guys to give us feedback in the form of online reviews? And they say, well, sure. Well, thank you. And then the last thing, or the next thing is, when we deliver on the promise, we would ask that you provide us an introduction between now and closing, an introduction to somebody who might also be in real need of real estate services right now, whether it's buying, selling, investing. Could possibly be that maybe they just need a roofer, a contractor, a resource. And of course, we have all those things available for our clients. And we would just appreciate an introduction to see who else we can help and maybe help now or in the future. Would that be okay? Great. And, by the way, I don't know why it is. It just is that, when you're in the middle of a real estate transaction, you just seem to run into more people that are in the middle of a real estate transaction or looking to get in the middle of a real estate transaction. So thank you for that. So let me share with you then also what the promise is not. The promise is not that everything's going to go perfect. A real estate transaction is touched by many, many people, and things can and will go wrong. And yet our job is to be your partner in this and to provide the solutions and be the guide, should something get sideways, to make sure we navigate this successfully and get you moved to Atlanta. and get you to Atlanta when you desire to be there. So that's our promise to you. And I look forward to fulfilling that promise and earning your review and your introduction. So can we kind of get to the business now of getting you guys moved to Atlanta? Perfect. So, I've got 3 goals for our appointment tonight, and I really so respect your time and your investment of time today. And I've got 3 goals for our meeting. And number 1, we're going to review your motivation to sell this house now and agree on a price that will cause it to sell. We're going to take a moment. I'll answer any questions you have. I know, of course, I sent a packet over. You said y'all looked at that. That's fantastic. We'll go through any questions you have on that. And then we'll decide tonight if you'd want to work with me, and then I'll decide tonight if I want to take your listing. Now, you might ask yourself, why might I not take your listing? And I'll tell you that doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while, somebody will want to put a price on a home or have an expectation that we know we can't meet. And quite honestly, I'd rather turn you down today than let you down later, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that you can expect from me is just real candor so that I'm able to give you the right guidance. In fact, as we talked here in a little bit, the most important thing I really want to discover today is really understanding what's at stake for you guys in this move to make sure that we give you the right guidance and the right direction to make good decisions so that we get you to Atlanta in December when you want to be there. So I have three critical questions for you as we move forward. And that one is, are you guys really wanting to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house? Is this a must for you? And I invite them into the conversation. They go, yeah, we don't want to rent it. We've done the long distance thing. Well, somebody was working away before, and we want to get the whole family moved at one time. We don't want to go through any of that again. And you just let and see what comes out, right? Then I go, perfect. So we're definitely going to get the house sold and get you moved to Atlanta. Let me ask you this. Are you guys willing to put a price on their house that will cause it to sell? Or are we going to reach and maybe risk having it sit on the market? Are we willing to price it to sell? Perfect. And we'll go through all that data in a little bit and make sure that we're really clear on all the details of the market, and we can make a good choice on price. And then my last question is, do you want me to handle the sale for you? And well, yeah, you came really highly recommended. Yeah, absolutely. Well, perfect. Well, here's what I want to do before we dig into the price and your questions. And that is, as I said a moment ago, the most important thing we're here tonight to do is make good decisions to get you guys moved to Atlanta when you want to be there. Now, Mrs. Smith, I spoke to Mr. Smith, about some of the details of your move, and I'd like to review all that with y'all to make sure we're all 100% on the same page and I have complete full understanding about everybody's thoughts and concerns. Would that be okay? Perfect. So Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, when we talked previously, I understand that you guys are making this move to Atlanta, and that there's a job change around that. And tell me a little bit about that job change. What's really what's the opportunity here? What are y'all excited? Tell me a little bit about what this means for you and your family. And I'm going to be quiet and let them talk. And whatever they say is well, that sounds exciting. And tell me a little bit more. Yeah. And geez. And so then, of course, on timing, we said ideally, maybe Christmas holidays. Is that really, are y'all pretty in step with that? Is that really the ideal target that we're shooting for here? Is during the holidays? Tell me why that's important so I can really make sure that I give you the right guidance tonight. And they say, yes, there's a break in our kids' preschool, and, we just want to start somewhere fresh at the beginning of a year. And it just seems like the right timing, and his work starts January 2nd. So the timing would be perfect to do that. And we have everything taken care of here. And then I'm going to ask the question. So let me ask this. So we've got you closed moved to Atlanta, you're in your new place in Atlanta, job has started, your children are in their new daycare, everything is set. What's that ultimately do for you and your family when we make that happen? We'll just be at ease. We'll be at peace. Perfect. Well, my job is to make sure that we've got you moved to Atlanta. Kids are set in their new place. You've got your new home. You got that. You're focused on your new job. You don't have to worry about a house back here in Birmingham. So let's go, before we get into that, then, outside of price, what questions do I need to answer before we take care of paperwork and get your home on the market so we can get you moved to Atlanta? Now let's pause right here. Now you heard that I just said, now what I did is I jumped to page 190 in your bold manual. Let's follow the track I've been on. So I went through the promise, which you have on page 195. I then picked up on page 192. I went through the motivation on the top half of page 193. And then I injected right in the middle of page 193, that bottom sentence from page 190, which said, outside of price, what questions do I need to answer before we get paperwork signed and your home on the market? Now, at this point, they may not have any questions. Now, there are probably 3 or 4 things that you want to go through ultimately after the paperwork is done, just to make sure you've anchored expectations well about how things are going to go. And we'll come to that in just a minute, but let me give you a little price tips. One of the things as you're going through the comparables is either on a laptop or an iPad, some way you can display very clearly as you're going through the comparables, particularly the active listings they might be competing against if they're in a pretty competitive market, to see what they're competing against. And then, of course, those sold listings that we're really relying on, for our comparable data. I want you to go ahead and take and go through all the pictures, scroll or slide or tab through all the pictures of those listings. And what you're asking them to do is, well, let's take a look at the competition, or let's look at the most recent solds, and let's see in your mind how they're similar or different than what we have to offer, because this is how people determine price or value, as they do it by comparison. And let's take a look at, the 3 listings that we're evaluating to determine your price. And you're going to do your CMA as you normally do, and point out the details, but go through the photos. Particularly on the competition, when the market gets more competitive and there's more on the market and things stay a little longer and there's competition, then I'm going to encourage you to make sure that you definitely, on those that you're competing against, are sliding through the pictures. And because my agent did this with me, and it was real easy for me to see that, well, that one that's priced at blank, it is higher, and yet it's got nicer countertops, it's got more wood floor, it's got a more private yard. I just ran through the list and I automatically discounted mine by comparison, that I wasn't going to I was not going to make any attempt to compete with that one. Those pictures are powerful, and don't just print little bitty pictures, get the full screen experience, to have them really take that in. Now, here's another tip. I actually had a listing competition with some of my agents that came in, and newer agents that did their listing presentation. One of them did a really good job. The reason she didn't get it was there was a house across the street and over one house that had sold like 5 weeks prior, and it was not included in our comparable data anywhere. And obviously, and by the way, I just, I was playing a consumer who hadn't done research. And the fact that she never brought it up was concerning to me. And now the agent that won the listing, she did bring it up. And then later when I debriefed the other agent, well, your CMA, you didn't bring up that listing across the street. She goes, yeah, because the square footage was, more than 400 square feet bigger. And yet I don't know that as the consumer necessarily. I just know it's another 2-story house just like mine. And why wasn't it included in the conversation or in the evaluation? And so part of my grading process with them was, how did they do on their CMAs? And she failed on that because that left an incomplete for me. So understanding that the little details matter. Even if there's something that's on their street that is not a match, make sure you include those in your conversation, because they're going to be curious, especially when it's that close and that recent. So at that point, you handle the objections that come up, prior to the paperwork, or you work through price, and that's a simple listing presentation. The conversation, I would spend most of the time on the motivation. And you've hit the promise. I'm going to go back to their motivation, why that's important. Now, once the paperwork's been completed, I do want to go back and revisit expectations. The 3 most important expectations to make sure we're all dialed in on are communication. When and how often, and by what means we're going to communicate, and then you deliver. Number 2 is what are we going to do about things like open house? Some people are pro open house. Some people don't want unaccompanied strangers going through their house. And so make sure there's a decision made one way or the other on what to do or not to do open houses. And the other thing is expectations around marketing. And that, you might go back and visit the marketing plan and say, here's what's going to happen next. We've got the photographer, we're going to get those professional photos. Here's where they're going to get posted. In today's world, we invest our dollars in photography and staging and making your home shine, because the online world is where the marketing is today, not print. And I'm not going to commit to print media. Maybe we have a postcard, or they'll be in a newsletter feature or something like that. Just make sure that it's 100% clear on what to expect, because if it's not selling, they're going to think, well, you're not doing something. And tell them what you are doing, why you're going to do it. You're going to have Facebook posts, various things that are going to happen. Maybe you're going to have a boosted Facebook ad. Just outline what to expect. And today, as we get possibly into a seasonal market and things take a little longer to sell, have things space out a little bit. You're going to have to deliver, maybe as the market goes more seasonal, possibly you might have to space out a couple of months of servicing. And so just be prepared for this. All right. So hope those tips are helpful to you. And let's keep working on that listing presentation, vital piece of your business.